This is my review of the Gerber Paraframe knife and the Gerber Mini Paraframe, which is shown above. There is also a Gerber Paraframe 2, which is larger overall than the Paraframe that I'm demonstrating here, but I don't have that knife and won't be reviewing it. I also won't be discussing the particular aspects of the steel. I'm not a knife expert by any means. This is simply a knife that I use both for day-to-day around town carry, and both of these knives I've used for backpacking and hiking. So I will be relaying my experiences with both of these knives and how they compare to each other for a person who might be interested in either of these uses. Overall, to begin with, there are size differences here. The larger Paraframe is 7 inches long total with a 3-inch blade. The Mini Paraframe has a 2 1/4 inch blade and is about 5 1/4 inches overall. In terms of weight, on my scale, I'll let that 0. The Paraframe 1 is 2.7 ounces, which is 77 grams. The smaller knife is 39 grams, or 1.4 ounces. So you can see that there are some size and weight differences between the two knives. Also, you'll see that with the knives that I own, the Mini, the blade on the Mini is fully edged here. With the Paraframe, you have an option of a fully edged blade, or what Gerber calls a serrated edge. Well, a lot of people do, but their serrated edge blade means that half approximately of the blade edge the blade is edged, and about half, the lower half of the blade is serrated, and the serrations are very nice. They're very useful. Again, I use this primarily for backpacking and around town usage, and for cutting rope and those types of materials at camp. Some strings. I've gotten caught up on some line once or twice when hiking, and used these serrations to remove those lines. The Paraframe has what's called a skeletonized frame, and I really like that for backpacking purposes. It's extremely easy to clean. You can see that if there's any dirt or grit that gets inside of this knife, you can literally just dunk it or run under some water or just use a paper towel or whatever method you want to use. It's not like a knife that would be fully enclosed where you might get some grit in the channel here, which would be hard to remove, and you may have to go home to do and use some kind of compressed air, some other method, paper towel of some sort, to really get inside and clean, toothbrush or some sort of brush to clean the internal channels of the frame. This knife is very nice for my purposes because it's so easy to clean. You can also see here that I've had this knife for about 5 years, but there's very minimal damage to the blade. There's some scuffing on the clip and some other places here, but for the most part it looks almost brand new. I've sharpened the knife several times, had no problems sharpening it. You have to be careful not to go onto the serrations, but it's not hard to sharpen. I've had no problems with that. It's got an ambidextrous thumb piece here and a frame lock, so the frame itself actually moves over when the blade is deployed using the thumb screw, thumb piece there, and the frame itself moves underneath the blade and stops it from moving. With the Paraframe Mini, one thing that I want to mention, and this may just be for this particular knife, but I don't like it as much. It does not have, and of course this is a compromise, it would be hard to open with the thumb anyway, but it does not have any type of thumb screw. You use your fingernail and open it. But the major problem that I've had with this Mini, and again this may be this particular knife, but you'll see that the frame doesn't come fully underneath here, so it's not fully locked in. It's only about a third, maybe half the way over. I'd say a half would be generous, probably a third of the way over. In order to move it fully over, you actually have to apply some pressure. And again, this may be in this particular knife, but the way it's designed, it looks like that could be a problem for many of these knives, and they're sold in a package, so you can't really test the knife out before you buy it. So just be aware that this may be an issue, and make note of that, or look out for it when you buy the knife. Another thing that I like about the Paraframe blade, the full size, but I don't like about the Mini, you'll see that if you, and this is just one example, but if you hold the knife by the blade and you shake it, this blade isn't moving out until you give quite a bit of force, and I'm not going to do that here. With the Mini, if you even give a slight amount of force, the blade will open up at least a little bit, and possibly even more. There's nothing really that's holding this knife in. Why is this an issue? Well, the last time I was out backpacking, I had this knife in my pocket, and somehow or another, either through something in my pocket or the way I was sitting or some sort of pressure, somehow got underneath that blade just a little bit, some fabric or something got up there. And when I stopped for a water break and stood up, I noticed that this blade had deployed a little bit. I want to say it was about out here by the time I noticed it. So this was riding in my pocket, and the blade was open, even if it was just a slight bit. And that really caused me to not want to carry this knife anymore. So the combination of those two factors, that the frame lock really just doesn't move over far enough, and the fact that the blade opened in my pocket for whatever reason really caused me to not want to use the Mini anymore. So I'll move it aside at this point. The full-size Paraframe, on the other hand, I've had no problems with in this regard. Again, the frame lock is extremely solid, and you're not going to be opening up this this blade just with a little bit of pressure. The only item, and again this is something after using this blade now for about 5 years, maybe even more, I got it at Walmart for $18. And that is that the pins here are starting to come loose a little bit, and I just need to tighten those up, and that's just something that I need to do. And after that much use, it's understandable. So I just need to get a little hex wrench there and tighten those up. But otherwise, this has been a great blade, and I really like using it, and I would definitely recommend it. The price is great, and if you're going to be using it for the field, for field use, for backpacking or camping purposes, this is definitely an adequate, sufficient knife to carry. So that has been my review of the Gerber Paraframe and the Paraframe Mini. I hope that's useful for you when you're considering a knife to purchase.